Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the fridge. On the menu tonight, World of Tanks. Tonight I have a treat for you. A first look at Wargaming's new Tier 8 premium tank, the Mauerbrecher. This new tank is designated the VK-168-01. The history of this tank is theoretical, as it existed only in blueprints according to Wargaming. The blurb of this tank cites it as being one of the mouse prototypes developed by Ferdinand Porsche. The design of this is basically a front turret mouse. In operation, it's more or less a copy of the VK-100-01. I'm going to be comparing the Mauerbrecher to other heavy premium tanks that are currently available for purchase in the tech tree, as well as the VK-100-01. Let's start with the gun. The VK-100-01 and the Mauerbrecher share the same 12.8cm KWK L50 cannon, although the Mauerbrecher has the A designation to separate it from the VK-100-01. So let's take a look at some figures. The 128mm cannon has an alpha strike of 440 hit points, putting ahead of all other tanks in class. Combine this with a rate of fire of 4 rounds per minute, and it gives you a decent DPM of 1836, which is basically the same as the 112, and only 70 DPM behind the FCM 50 ton. Penetration is decent at 220mm, which puts it behind the Lowe and the T-34, but ahead of the 112 and FCM. Turret rotation is slow at 15.64 degrees per second, but this is to be expected for such a massive turret. Gun depression and elevation figures are robust, with 8 degrees down and 25 degrees up. Gun handling is average, a dispersion of 0.38 putting it behind the 112. The aim time of 2.59 is pretty good, putting it behind only the FCM 50 ton. When we look at the survivability of this tank, there are some interesting figures. 1,700 hit points is class leading, tied with the VK-100-01. Frontal hull armour is 180mm, side armour is 130mm, and the rear armour is 100mm. Turret is also quite impressive, with 230mm on the front, 160mm on the sides, and 100mm on the rear. However, these figures do not tell the whole story. There are some serious weak points on this tank, namely the commander's cupola at 150mm, the machine gun port with 140mm, and the lower plate is only 130mm thick. The weaknesses are a serious problem when combined with the lack of mobility that comes with a 170 ton tank. Speaking of mobility, let's have a look at that. This tank is massive, weighing in at 168 tonne. The power plant is an equally massive unit, churning out 1,600 horsepower. Unfortunately, this only gives you a 20km/h top speed, although 15km/h in reverse is still quite decent. The power to weight ratio is less than 10 horsepower per tonne, which makes wiggling and manoeuvring somewhat difficult. One thing this tank does do well though, is push things around. You've got a lot of weight and a lot of horsepower, and this combines to give you a distinct advantage in a face-hugging situation or when trying to push wreckage around. The hull traverse is almost 19 degrees per second, putting it ahead of only the VK-100-01. Concealment is not an option with this tank, so don't try it. This tank is built as a breakthrough tank. It was designed to take a pounding while allies work on dealing with the enemy tanks. Spotting on this tank is actually quite good, with a view range of 400 metres. As for my personal assessment of the tank, this is a large tank and she does not dance well. And this means that in a game filled with artillery, she will get badly punished. The deck armour is only 40mm, which means that direct hits from artillery do severe damage, resulting in multiple system failures. The weakness in the frontal hull is easily exploitable by any Tier 8 tank, and with such limited mobility, you're unable to make evasive manoeuvres like the smaller heavy tanks can. When she's up tiered into Tier 9 or Tier 10 games, the Mauerbrecher is basically an XP pinata. This new premium is good news though, as it seems Wargaming has taken a step back to a time when they were not releasing overpowered pay-to-win tanks such as the Defender. This tank does make credits quite well, and when you manage to make a bit of damage and survive, a 100,000 coin game is really not hard to get. Dealing damage in this tank, however, can be quite tricky at times, since this gun almost never hits the bullseye. It seems that the hidden values make this gun useless in a sniping role, and tends to force you to press the 2 key at medium range because you can't quite hit those weak spots. Even up close, there are tanks that your gun cannot reliably penetrate. However, the ability to bully these tanks with your solid upper plate and massive horsepower, you can just push them around. And keep this in mind, because there's times when you can push a red tank out in front of your allied guns or off a cliff and into the drink. Personally, I wouldn't buy this tank. I mean, I already have a Lowe to make credits with, and in fairness, the Lowe fights Tier 10s a lot better than this. I have a VK100-01, which fills the role of a Tier 8 mouse. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying don't buy the tank. I'm just saying that this tank is not what it initially appears to be. It's not this heavily armoured death-dealing machine that the numbers would lead you to believe it is. What it is a mobile ATM that is not quite as good as other tanks in its tier, which in my opinion is just how premium tanks should be. If you enjoy my content, please give a like and subscribe to my channel. Keep an eye out for me on Twitch and follow me there to receive notifications when I go live. Thank you for joining me again in the fridge. I'll see you again soon.